10 years ago, for the very first time, coaster fans around the world made their voices heard by casting their votes in the inaugural Thrilling 32 roller coaster poll. Over the last decade, rankings have been formed, brackets have been busted, and champions have been crowned. The best 32 wood and 32 steel roller coasters, as voted by you, the fans, have battled it out for a spot on the championship belt. For the last 4 years, it's been the Voyage at Holiday World taking the Wood Coaster Championship, and for the last 3 years, it's been Steel Vengeance at Cedar Point taking the Steel Coaster Championship. Can either of these rides be dethroned, or will their reigns continue in 2021? It's time for the 10th edition of the Thrilling 32 Bracket Challenge, and it starts with the Thrilling 32 Selection Show, right now, on this very special episode of COASTER-net Uncut.
Throughout time, roller coasters have come and gone. Only some become legends for their intensity and thrills. Each and every year, coaster fans like you venture to the parks, searching for that one special ride that stands out above the rest. You submitted your rankings, and now it's time to reveal the group of elite roller coasters that you have voted as the best of the best. COASTER-net Uncut is proud to present the 2022 Coaster Rumble.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 10th edition of the Thrilling 32. That's right, Andy, 10 years of this nonsense. And most of it on the YouTube channel. The first couple of years was through the blog. Way back when, in 2012, Andy, you were trying to predict the winners of the Thrilling 32. You were a participant. You weren't even part of this nonsense. And then here we are 10 years later. It's the Thrilling 32. And Andy, yes, as you heard in the intro, fans, we are bringing back the Royal Rumble. The Coaster Rumble format is back for the 10th anniversary of the Thrilling 32. Andy, I am super excited for this.
Well, the people have spoken. So they said, we want the Rumble back. And, we had considered maybe for the 10th anniversary, we bring back the brackets. And people are like, ugh. It feels like we've done that already. It feels like we've been down that road for maybe 9 other years. So let's do the Rumble again. A lot of people were like swearing on us last year about how difficult it was. And we're like, you guys are a bunch of sissies. It wasn't that hard. So you know what we did, Danny? Is we made it harder this year.
That's right. Last year, the group sort of just kind of made themselves, manufacturers, location. This year, you and I even spent more time meticulously picking and choosing our matchups. So this is going to be a lot of fun here. This is our favorite.
And they're right there, Danny. That's what it's all about right there. Is getting your name on the plates, the Thrilling 32 championship title, the 10th anniversary. This is going to be exciting. We've had some winners in the past, right? How many years has Vengeance won in a row now? 2?
Well, Voyage is the 4-time defending Wood champion now, 17, 18, 19, and 2020. And we're coming into, we finished off the year 2021. It's looking for its 5th consecutive championship. And Steel Vengeance has won. Steel Vengeance is undefeated, has never lost. 2018, 19, and 2020 last year. So Voyage is the 4-time defending champion, 5 times overall in the history, and Vengeance is the 3-time and undisputed steel champion, looking for to go 4 for 4.
But I got some news for you. There's already controversy entering into this Coaster Rumble, and that controversy, Danny Miller, is number 1. Lightning rod. People, when they were filling out their forms, couldn't decide, was it steel, was it wood, what the hell's going on here? Well,
in the comments from last year, people were first of all, people were worried when they heard about the new show format, number 1, and then they praised us for our once again groundbreaking ideas that we have here at COASTER-net. And number 2, everyone said, what are you going to do with lightning rod? Well, fans, you're going to find out. Or maybe you won't. We'll have to see. But at the end of the day, let's bury the hatchet here. We allowed people to rank rides wherever they want, be it on the wood list, the steel list, or both. Maybe some people count it as both now. So we'll find out if Lightning Rod is indeed in one or both or none of the brackets, because there are folks who choose not to rank defunct rides. So perhaps Lightning Rod, should it appear in the wood bracket still, might have some significant changes if people choose not to rank defunct rides, and maybe it'll appear in the steel bracket too. That would be a first for the Thrilling 32 to have the same ride appear in both brackets.
Oh, it'll make it a lot easier on the plates over there. I just make one of the two of the same. But you know, we've never, and this is the thing that confused me at the end of last year, is we've never come out and said that that defunct rides are not allowed on our list. That Dragon Challenge has always been on the Universal Studios Steel side. Other rides as they have come and gone have been like Wicked Twister was still, you know, on, you know, the Cedar Point side, and it will continue to be on. So we've never, you know, some people like make polls and like make a big deal out of, oh, we allow defunct rides. Okay. We have for 10 years. So
we've never had a defunct ride that ranked high enough to be in the brackets. The closest we ever got was the Blackpool Pleasure Beach Wild Mouse, was number 32 in 2017, but it operated that year. That was the year where it was torn down over the winter, and it was torn down kind of unceremoniously between the time that the season ended and when we did this selection show. So it was a defunct ride by the time we did the brackets, but people forget that it operated for a good part of that year. Yeah. So technically we've never had a truly defunct ride that did not operate in the season it appeared in the bracket. So we'll see how that pans out here. So Andy, real quick, before we reveal our 8 groups, 4 wood and 4 steel, we're just going to do a very, very brief recap of the rules. They have not changed from last year's format in the Coaster Rumble, but here's how it works. So just like in every year past, we will be showing you groups of 8, and they will each have their own individual name, and they will be identified as such in the Google form that you will fill out at the conclusion of this show. We will show you a group of 8 roller coasters. In the first round of the Thrilling 32 Coaster Rumble, your job is to identify the top 4 out of that group of 8. You do not have to do any particular rankings. You just have to identify which 4 ranked highest in that group of 8. You get 1 point for each correct selection. You will do that 8 times, 4 in the wood bracket, 4 in the steel bracket. In round 2, you will then take your 4 selections from round 1, and you will rank them 1 through 4, 1 being the coaster that you think ranked highest, and 4 being the coaster that you believe ranked lowest out of those 4. You get 2 points for each correct ranking. And by virtue, I guess, your number 1 ranking in each group then becomes your selection out of that group to go into the final 4 in each bracket. You do that for the 4 wood groups and the 4 steel groups, and you will have your final 4 wood and final 4 steel predictions. And then the semifinals and the finals, the final 4 and the championship, are traditional head-to-head like they were in the first 8 years. You just pick which coaster of the 2 you believe ranked higher. And then again, in the championship, your final 2 rides, which coaster ranked higher, and that will be your selection, your prediction as the number 1 coaster in this year's Ride Warrior Choice Awards, Thrilling 32 Coaster Rumble.
And Danny, correct me if I'm wrong, but the Ride Warrior Choice Awards is the longest continuously running. You finish the rest of this because I forget the
No, that is correct. So because of a discontinuity in several award programs during the pandemic in the year of 2020, the Ride Warrior Choice Awards and the Thrilling 32 is now the longest continuous running awards program in the amusement industry, and we don't plan on that changing anytime soon.
No. Now we cannot say the same, unfortunately, for the Tournament of Terrible, since
that's not really an award program.
It's an award, trust me.
Okay. It's an award of dishonor, if you will.
Oh, for sure. Sometimes I think people are more excited about that than what this is here. So
No, that's right. So again, 1 point per correct selection in the first round, 2 points for each correct ranking in the second round. That makes the second round the most valuable in the entire tournament. And again, that was done basically a philosophy that a lot of people kept getting the champions right every year. So we wanted to put more emphasis on those early rounds. 8 points for correct semifinal predictions, and then 16 points for an accurate champion prediction at the end of all this. You'll sum up your totals once you submit your selections, and whoever's got the most points wins. And in the Google form, now we haven't figured out what our tiebreakers are going to be this year. But we'll come up with some tiebreaker questions between the recording.
Don't we always use the same ones though with Manta and Raptor, assuming that
we've done that. We've done that the last couple of years, and that seems to work pretty well because people have no idea where the hell those rides end up ranking these days. So I think that'd probably be a pretty safe.
No, Danny, I'll be completely honest with you. I don't think you're gonna be able to use that this year. You know why?
Why is that?
I have a strong feeling that the voters in year number 10 finally came through for Raptor and put it in the number 1 championship spot that it deserves.
Do you think they finally caught on?
I think they finally caught on. I think they finally wisened up and realized after this long pandemic, after all this terrible stuff, that they realized, oh my God, Raptor is the greatest roller coaster of all time. And I think this is the year that we're going to see that happen finally.
Oh boy. Well,
not only be in the 32, but be number 1 in the 32.
Well, if Raptor is number 1, then Raymond Mann will not be winning this year. But Arthur Poor may.
Arthur Poor is always a winner. So
there we go. All right. So Andy, without further ado, would you like to see our first group on the wood side of things this year here? The 2021 season here.
Sure, let's do it. Let's get that first pod out.
All right, so we're going to start off with the wood coasters as we always do. And this year, all of our groups are named after coaster designers, coaster manufacturers, but specific people. So our first group is the Cook Group because all 3 Holiday World wood coasters appear in this first group here. This is a pretty stacked group right off the bat, Andy. We've got El Toro from Six Flags Great Adventure in Jackson, New Jersey. Goliath from Six Flags Great America in Gurnee, Illinois. The Legend from Holiday World in Santa Claus, Indiana. Mystic Timbers from Kings Island in Kings Mills, Ohio. The Phoenix from Knoebels Amusement Resort in Ellisburg, Pennsylvania. The Raven from Holiday World in Santa Claus, Indiana. Ravine Flyer 2 from Waldemere Park in Erie, Pennsylvania. And The Voyage, the 4-time defending champion, 5-time overall champion from Holiday World in Santa Claus, Indiana. So, Andy, so El Toro, Mystic Timbers, Phoenix, Voyage, all have been to the Final Four at least once in the past. We've got the defending champion. We've got a lot of things going on. No slouches in this region at all.
Well, and that's the thing about it is you look at this and you're like, and it just hits you in the face and you're like, damn, I forgot about this since last year, that I did it last year, got through it, survived, maybe didn't survive. Who knows what happened to them. But you look at it and the advice I give to everyone here is don't overthink yourself. Don't overthink what's going on here. So, you got some heavy players here, but maybe you have to eliminate the bottom 2 first. You got to get rid of the bottom 2. Not saying that's easy in this group, but there are 2 of them that are on the bottom. So there's 4 that won't be moving on. So you just got to figure it out. And the problem is, right, and correct me if I'm wrong, but these groups are not by overall ranking. So they could be anywhere in the 32. So it's not like
this could be 1 through 8 right here, or it could be 30, 32 through, 25 or whatever
yeah,
it is.
Absolutely. So you got to think about it. You still have to rank them in your head. Okay, which of these 8 are the top 4? And that's, you got to sit down and figure out which of these 8 are the top 4. And you can't just, figure it out. And we say sometimes go back to the old ones, go back to the old things that we posted on thrilling32.com. But I'll tell you this, Danny, here's the other problem we have here. last year there weren't any new rides in the poll, right? There were new.
Do we in the wood side there was not. We did have Orion join on the steel side as far as 2020 ride, but we didn't have that many open, right?
Yeah. So now that people have gone back out, people have started going to parks again. People have started going to new parks.
Did they ever?
I expect that we are going to see a shift in the numbers from the last few years. Kind of like 2019 kind of followed 2020, because of that lack of people going out. But now people have gone out in mass, and so I don't know if the old numbers are going to help you. They might. Who knows?
Well, this year the voting pool, we had the highest average number of rides ridden per voter this year of any year that we've been doing this. So on average, the voters rode more rides this year than they have any other year. So, you've again, and that makes sense because we've got a nice core of voters that vote every year, and they go to new parks every year. They ride new rides. And, a lot of folks who've been with us many, many years went on really big road trips in 2021 to make up for 2020.
Yeah.
So, there could be lots of shifting with some of these rides. But, I'm looking here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of these 8 rides have placed in the top 10. In the history of the Thrilling 32 here. The only 2 that have not made it to the top 10 are Raven and Legend. Those are the only 2 rides that have never been in the top 10 here. So again, your job here is to pick which 4 of these 8 rides are the highest 4. But then again, maybe that might be kind of easy here, but then you got to rank them 1 through 4 properly.
Yeah.
So that might, if I can say, I think that might be the tougher part of this group here is once you pick your 4, trying to figure out which order those 4 go in. I mean, let's be honest, Voyage is here.
What happened last year? Because I remember we were predicting that one of these 2 phases was going to be the harder, and then it kind of surprised us how.
Well, I think it kind of depended on the group because if if you do go off of the history a little bit, there's 3 rides that should kind of be shoo-ins here. And then maybe that 4th one is a little bit more challenging. But the problem is, Voyage, El Toro, Phoenix, in particular, those rides are all, historically top 1, 2, 3, top 5 rides every year pretty much. So, the ranking could be so minute between those 2 and the percentages are so small with how many voters we have now.
Yeah.
So, it doesn't take much for the ranking themselves to shift. And now all of a sudden that matters. That matters in that second round. So I think maybe the first round might be a little bit easy in this group, but ranking those 4, once you pick which ones you're going to go with, I think that's going to be the challenge in this group.
I'm also going to comment on, only 2 of these rides currently, and people might not know this, only 2 of these rides do not have magnets, 3D magnets that you've made. So only 2 of them.
Yes. Let's see. Yes, you are correct. Only 2 of them.
And I don't know which ones we've revealed because I know you've been working on a lot of stuff, but yeah, only 2 of them. One of them's clear, El Toro. I'm surprised you haven't done an El Toro. I know you're just.
No, I have. I printed a poop emoji.
but I know you don't like the ride, but I know how much you love rivets, and that one has rivets all over the place. So
the rivets are a done deal when I finally get around to El Toro. That you bet your ass. Honestly, and the other one's Ravine Flyer. They're both actually pretty easy ones to do. So maybe I'll have to do those.
Yeah.
Those 2 too long here. So
let's move on to the next group.
Yeah, let's move on to group number 2 here, and it is the Larry Bill group from CCI Gravity Group. So we've got the Bill group, and in the Bill group we've got the Boardwalk Bullet from Kemah Boardwalk in Kemah, Texas. We've got the Coaster from P&E Playland in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. We've got Ghost Rider from Knott's Berry Farm in Buena Park, California. We've got Gold Striker from California's Great America in Santa Clara, California. We've got Rampage from Alabama Splash Adventure in Bessemer, Alabama. We've got Renegade from Valley Fair in Shakopee, Minnesota. Andy, We talked about Texas Stingray being the first ride out last year. Texas Stingray is in the Thrilling 32 this year. So Texas Stingray from SeaWorld San Antonio in San Antonio, Texas. And finally, we've got Tremors from Silverwood Theme Park in Athol, Idaho, making an appearance here, completing out the bill group. So Andy, you know, the coaster last year was number 4 last year. Okay, it actually outranked El Toro. It's been on a pretty steady rise the last 5 years here. And it's been in the top 10 each of the last 3 years. And last year was the highest it's ever been in history. So, you know, the coaster has kind of been one that's been flying under the radar for the last couple of years. Gold Striker was a Final Four ride last year. Ghost Rider has also been trending up the last several years since the retrack. So there's a lot of rides in this group that are, if you look at the trends, are moving up the rankings. So something's got to give here. What do you think about this group here?
Well, first, I think you should have made the tiebreaker the number of people that I would have actually been able to identify of these groups, because look at these. Like, who the hell is this guy? So anyway, you know, I think you're absolutely right. This one's really tough because you're talking about things that are trending up, things that might have been in middle of the pack in recent years. So this one's really tough to pick the top 4, I think. However, I don't know. We got a new member on the Discord recently, Knight of SAO, I believe his name was, and he came pretty strongly out against Coaster at PNE, and a lot of the Discord members over at the COASTER-net Discord were pretty laughing their asses off on how he came out strongly against Coaster and said Danny Miller's a complete idiot. And I completely agree with this guy.
I completely agree with him too, to be quite honest with you.
That Coaster's
Yeah, so you know, we talk about Coaster. I mean, it's pretty obvious that Coaster might be here to stay. You know, in the top half here. It's been there for
unless he voted. I don't know if he voted in this poll.
Well, it's certainly possible. So you know, you've got a couple of rides that are pretty good, but you know, unlike the last group where there were 2 or 3 that really stuck out as like perennial top 5 rides, I don't know that we don't really have much of that here. You know, this is kind of a jumble here where I think selecting the 4 is going to be difficult, but ranking the 4 is going to be even worse. And you know, think about this: Rampage. That's been a top 5 ride in the past.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Renegade, interesting thing about Renegade, it always seems to be in the teens there. Renegade has only ever advanced past the first round of the Thrilling 32 once, and that was in 2019. So Renegade is one of those weird ones that's always kind of here, doesn't usually go pretty deep, but we know a lot of people went and rode Renegade this year. There are a lot of people who made Midwest road trips. So, you know, it's kind of tough to see where you're going to go here with some of these rides. And go ahead.
And I'll say Texas Stingray is also a huge question mark, because even though you have a ranking from last year, it was only open for a handful of months last year before everything got shut down. So you could have got on it before things shut down. You could have got on it after things started opening up a little bit. But traditionally in this poll, new coasters tend to do better. And I think last year might have been an outlier because so many people didn't go places new. So things like Orion, things like Candemonium, things like Texas Stingray. I don't know if we got an accurate depiction of where they're going to end up going on the rankings. So I would almost treat those rides as a new ride, and knowing that new rides have always had a bit of an advantage here, whereas other polls, it takes forever for new rides to start ranking. Here, how many new rides have won in its first year? Fury 325,
Fury 325, Steel Vengeance, Lightning Rod, Outlaw Run won in 2013 as well. So we've had plenty of rides win in their first year.
Now, I'm not at all saying Texas Stingray is the number 1 ride, but I think you have to be very careful with it being the first one out last year and where it eventually ends up on this list.
If you think about it, I mean, knowing that it was the first ride out last year because it was number 33 last year, when you consider that it opened in February for a few weeks before the shutdown and then didn't open again until June, July, a lot of folks probably weren't traveling yet in the summer. When you consider that voting closed in October, you really only had maybe 4 months where this ride was actually operating, and the number of people who traveled probably very small. So when you consider that it still was number 33 last year, that might be indicative of Texas Stingray perhaps doing very, very well, because the reviews of Texas Stingray are very positive.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting where that one ends up going there. So this one so far, out of two, this one's the much harder group in my mind, because I think picking those middle rides are always more difficult than picking your top and your bottom.
I think I would agree with you 100% there. So shall we move on to Group 3?
Sure.
All right, let's move on to Group 3, and it's the Corey Kiepert group. We've got lots of rides from CCI and or the Gravity group here. We've got Boulder Dash from Lake Compounce in Bristol, Connecticut. We've got Hades 360 from Mount Olympus Theme Park in Wisconsin Dells, Wisconsin. Andy, we've got Lightning Rod from Dollywood, Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. Lightning Rod is here in the wood bracket. We've got Mind Blower.
And now hold on. Before we move on there, is this the first defunct ride that has made it into the top 32?
Yes, this is the first ever defunct ride that did it in its form did not operate in the season that it made the Thrilling 30.
Okay, there you go. So a record breaker there.
Yeah, yes, we do. We've got Mind Blower from Fun Spot Kissimmee in Kissimmee, Florida. We've got Outlaw Run from Silver Dollar City in Branson, Missouri. Outlaw Run in the same group again. We've got Prowler from Worlds of Fun in Kansas City, Missouri. We've got Shivering Timbers from Michigan's Adventure in Muskegon, Michigan. And finally, we've got Thunderhead from Dollywood in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. So we've got both Dollywood wood coasters here, including the defunct one. If you're indeed calling Lightning Rod steel, we've got the two big two of the big RMCs here. We've already seen Goliath. We've got a couple of GCIs in Prowler and Thunderhead. We've got Hades 360 and Mind Blower, a couple of Gravity groups. We've got a couple of old CCI coasters and Boulder Dash and Shivering Timbers. So Andy, we got a little bit of everything in this group.
Yeah, a little bit of everything. Is Thunderhead, correct me if I'm wrong, Thunderhead's usually in the top 32, right? Or is it
yes. So Thunderhead has actually been in the Thrilling 32 every single year since the beginning. It's been as high as number 4 many years ago, and it was I believe it was number 23 last year, and it had a slight decrease from earlier in the years, but it's sort of settled in there a little bit.
Yeah, I'm looking at the top 4 here myself and how I would pick it, and I don't care what who the top 4 is, but I'm a little bit upset because I see some coasters that I think are on the outside looking in, and they shouldn't be. If I'm looking at this correctly.
Yeah, I mean, we got one more group here, but there's a lot of rides we haven't really seen or met or haven't even really talked about yet.
Yeah, this one's got 2. The 3 I see clearly. It's numbers 4 and 5 that I think get a little confusing here with this group. So
we've got 3 former champions in here. So if you're purely going off of that. There's 3 here that are pretty obvious. Maybe like a lot like that first group. The problem is trying to pick that 4th one.
Yeah.
And maybe ranking those top 3 might be a little bit of a challenge, but picking that 4th one is important here because again, if you don't pick that 4th ride right, you don't get the points in the second round for it either. Yeah. So your error concatenates into that second round because even though that 4th ride isn't going to be in the final 4, if you don't pick that 4th ride correct in the first round, you can't get credit for ranking it correctly in the second round. So
what word did you just use there?
Concatenate.
That's a $5 word right there, Danny Miller.
So that's actually it's a little bit of a software engineering. It's like a programming logic term. We use it at work a lot, but it's basically like a carryover or like a snowball effect.
Okay, yeah. Well, there was a little bit of dissonance there between us, I think, as you said it. So that's why I had to clarify.
Yeah, there you go. Well done, sir. So I guess let's pretend for a minute that we know what's going on. Let's say Lightning Rod, Outlaw Run, Boulder Dash.
That's what we do every show. Come on, that's what we're known for.
So Lightning Rod, Outlaw Run, Boulder Dash, those are your 3 former champions in past years. Let's assume that those 3 are moving on. Let's look at the other 5. Where do you begin with trying to pick one out of those other 5?
Yeah, good luck. Good luck. So there's going to be a lot of caffeinating going on.
Caffeinating, that's what I do in the morning. When I work, I got to caffeinate. Yeah, so I mean, boy, that's real tough. And we talked about Hades 360 a little bit last year. Hades 360 has always been one of those sleepers that tends to do pretty well. It's been as high as 12 in the past. It's the only Mount Olympus ride ever to appear in the Thrilling 32. But it always seems to be one that flies under the radar. It's won a couple of matchups in the head-to-head format in the past. And it's always been one that's wreaked havoc on people's brackets, in the early rounds.
And the other thing too is Prowler and Shivering Timbers are 2 rides that always get hated in this poll, and I don't understand why.
That's never made any sense to me. I mean, Shivering Timbers has dropped in the rankings every year since it was first in 2013. Not by a lot, obviously, because it's still in, but it's slowly decreased. Prowler last advanced past the first round in 2018. So it's been a couple of years since Prowler has gone beyond the selection show. So, and to me, that seems odd because those are 2 rides that are really damn good.
Yeah, it's odd to me too, but what are you gonna do? People don't know what they're talking about. Well, that's why Raptor hasn't even been in the 32. So come on, like how intelligent are these voters? To be honest.
Well, and I mean to be fair, Manta hasn't been in a number of years either. So
well, there's something to be said there, right?
Are the voters getting dumber, Andy?
I don't know. I thought we were trying to educate the voters, and it's not going well so far. So
we're trying our best. All right. So shall we take a look at our final group for the wood brackets in this year's Thrilling 32 Coaster Rumble?
I think we should.
All right. Well, let's do it. And Andy, this is going to be your least favorite group. I can say that with a lot of confidence. It's the Jeff Pike group. And Andy, it's a group of 8 European coasters. So here we go. We've got Balder from Liseberg in Sweden. We've got Colossus from Heide Park in Germany. We've got Q Cullen from Tato Park in Ireland. We've got Joris and the Drak from Efteling in the Netherlands. We've got Andy. Once again, we've got what the hell is Rupstebanen from Tippecanoe in Denmark, the only scenic railway ever to be in the Thrilling 32, and it's in for a 2nd consecutive year. We've got Troy from Toverland in the Netherlands. We've got Wildfire from Sweden's Kolmarden Wildlife Park. And we're finishing up the wood coasters with Vodan Timber Coaster from Europa Park in Rust, Germany. So, Andy, I know you haven't ridden any of these rides. Okay.
Oh, hold on. Correct me if I'm wrong. But the last time I checked, the Beast is not in Europe, correct?
No, it is not, Andy, for the first time ever in the Thrilling 32. And you were a little bit of, to use a Coaster Radio term, you were a little bit of Coaster-damus last year when you saw the Beast was number 31 and you thought it might be the last year. Andy, the Beast, for the first time, not in the Thrilling 32 for the first time ever.
10 years I've waited for this ride to finally be out of the 32. But Danny, I'm overjoyed right now. But
your reward is you have to talk about 8 rides from Europe now.
Well, true. But I also know the bullshit's coming too. The bullshit's coming because they tore down half the ride. So next year.
Oh, that's right. Next year it's going to be better than ever. It's going to be a new number 1.
Oh, Jesus, run. So yes, the Beast fans have finally been silent.
Time in it.
but I don't know how long they're going to be silenced for. Hell, maybe even I'll still like the Beast.
You think they'll put some airtime in it?
Is it a new credit though?
Well, they're supposedly reshaping some of the drops and turns. So do you think they'll have some airtime in it?
I don't know, but I'm just gonna sit here and bask in the glory known as the Beast being on the outside looking in. And you can talk whatever the hell you want to talk about these rides. I could give two shits, to be honest with you.
Yeah, so quite frankly, because these aren't rides that we've talked about a whole heck of a lot, I had to do a little bit of research here. So how about this? Colossus has risen in the rankings each of the last 2 years after its big refurbishment. It's been as high as number 8 in the past. Q Cullen is in the Thrilling 32 for the 4th time.
Do you mind if I play on my phone as you talk about this?
Yeah, there you go. Q Cullen is in the Thrilling 32 for the 4th time in its history and has never advanced past the first round. So seeking a first time advancement for Q Cullen. Joris and Nadrak an all-time high last year at number 20. The Rutsch Bannon an all-time high last year at number 19. And the first and only traditional scenic railway to be in the Thrilling 32. Troy was number 10 in 2019 and was knocked out in the first round because it had to go up against Voyage. So we've got some legitimate rides in here. And Wodan Timber Coaster, since it had a valid ranking and had enough voters and riders to qualify, it's been in every Thrilling 32 since it had enough riders to qualify. And then we've got Wildfire, which has been in the top 10 every year that it's been in the Thrilling 32 since it had enough riders to have a valid ranking. So, just because these aren't rides that we traditionally talk about, and I've only been on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've only been on 5 of these. And the other 3 are potentially on the docket for our next Europe trip in 2023. But there are rides that have ranked very, very well in the Thrilling 32 historically. So now here's the thing.
Well, you got to pick 4. So
you've got to pick 4, but there's a final 4 ride in here.
Okay.
So you gotta figure that out. The 4, I think, is certainly a challenge. Ranking them is going to be a challenge. But again, there's a final 4 ride in here.
Now, in theory, the way you've made these groups, the top 4 in the poll might not be the top 4 in the final 4, correct?
Right. I mean, the highest ranked ride in here could be like number 12, and that just happens to be in the final 4 because
so you could theoretically have the number 1 ranked ride, the number 2 ranked ride, the number 5 ranked ride, the number 15th ranked ride, just based on the grouping. So that's something to consider.
Sure.
The way that the groupings work.
Right. That doesn't mean any of these rides are top 4. They certainly could be.
You're just picking which one's the best of the bunch.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Which for this group, I would say you're picking the best of the bunch. So
right. Yeah. But I mean, pretty much all of these rides, with the exception of Q Cullen, Joris and Nadrak, and Rutsch Bannon, have all been top 10 at some point in the history of this poll.
Yeah, but they're in Europe, so it's the best of the bunch.
Well, yeah, that's exactly right. So Andy, there we have it. There's our 32 wood coasters this year in the Thrilling 32 Coaster Rumble. What do you think of this year's field, besides the Beast not being in?
Well, the Beast not in it. Cyclone once again not in it. Or was it number 32 last year? I always forget. It's always on that hairy edge.
Let's have a look. So again, I can bury the hatchet here, and this is this. So last year, Texas Stingray was number 33, and I think Cyclone was number 34 last year. Andy, this year, the Coney Island Cyclone is number 33.
So the Hall of Famer last year, because Cyclone did go into the Ride Warrior Choice Awards Hall of Fame last year, was inducted. Right on that hairy edge, and once again, right there again. So we've also not had a Hall of Famer in the 32 after it was inducted. So
yes, and I stand corrected. The Cyclone was number 40 last year. It did drop off a little bit, but it's up to 33 this year.
Wow, that's interesting. So it moved up probably from the Hall of Fame rub. That's what
it could be a lot of publicity there.
Probably that'd be my only guess. I'm trying to think of any other rides that I'm like, are absent here, and I can't think of anything that really jumps out at me here.
Yeah, I mean, we in the past sometimes we've had
trying to find 32 good wood coasters. It's a stretch. Honestly, it's a stretch.
Yeah, I mean, we've had.
Agreed. I just got 30. That's a stretch.
Well, 32 good wood coasters is hard. They're all great. Let's be honest.
Oh.
But we usually see one or two of the little gravity group rides. We've had Oscar's Wacky Taxi in, we've had Switchback in, we've had Wooden Warrior in the past, but none of those in the 32 this year. We do have Mind Blower, but that's a much bigger ride. So
I'm trying to find my pin that I like. Here it is. Oh, there you go. My pin. I'm a steel coaster guy.
Yeah, look at this guy. Unbelievable. A ride that I think is deserving of being here.
This is your pin here.
I'm a wood coaster guy. Yeah, there we go. That's a pin.
Not. I don't expect to sell any of those. Besides, I'll probably send you one for free, and that'd be it. I only made one, so
yeah. Well, yeah.
I figured I only need one.
Well, right. That's you're pretty much spot on there. Two rides that I think are always worthy of being in that have not been in a number of years. I always like Cornball Express. I think that's worthy of being in here. And the Twister at Knoebels. I think, if Phoenix is in, Twister on its best day is right there with Phoenix, if not maybe a little better.
I went to Knoebels, unfortunately, one more time this past summer,
and I met Twister better this year, and we rode together.
I thought Twister was a better ride than Phoenix. I thought Phoenix was a little bit lacking in what I remember it doing. I don't know what it was like. It's still a great ride. But you know what? I do know what it was. When I rode Phoenix the first time, it had rained all day long. And they opened it up at night, and that thing was flying on the track because
flying
it was
with a pH.
I don't know about that. But this time we went, it was hotter than Hades, right? I remember
it was on the muggy side, yeah.
Yeah, so that I think it was slowing the train down a little bit. But Twister, I thought Twister, both me and my compatriot at the time, Dason, both said Twister was the better ride that day. So
Twister's had a significant amount of retracking done the last couple of years. Twister really is as smooth as it's ever been. The last couple of years they've done the refurb, but they did a major retrack about 4 or 5 years ago, and ever since that retracking, 2017, 2018 time, Twister has been right up there with Phoenix in my book. I still like Phoenix a little bit better, but they're both top 10, 12 rides for me. So if Phoenix is in the Thrilling 32, I really see no reason why Twister shouldn't be in here as well. And I'm not quite sure why Twister doesn't get the love that it really deserves.
Yeah, it should be in the 32 for sure. I don't understand. Well, unless
I think it should be in the top half of the Thrilling 32. I mean, quite frankly, El Toro doesn't have any business being in here. Twister should just replace El Toro altogether.
Okay, so let's move on to the real rides, because this is fun.
Well, yeah, you want to talk about the real coasters now. So I guess we'll move on to the steel coasters. Again, good luck with the wood coasters. Certainly got your work cut out for you. Should be a lot of fun. And again, like Andy and I talked about off air before we started, our goal is to make people quit this year.
Yeah, that's the goal.
So maybe we've done that, maybe not. And if we haven't made you quit yet, then maybe we'll give the steel coasters a go here. And Andy, we're starting off with the Sandor Kernax region, named after.
So for the people taking tally at home, that is, I am only 1 for 5. People that I recognize.
Well, this is the Intamin guy, Andy. So of course we've got lots of Intamin rides here. So we've got Goliath. And this is the Goliath from Walibi Holland.
You know what? I probably would not have guessed that.
No, because that Goliath logo is almost identical for pretty much all of them. Yeah. So this is the Goliath from Walibi Holland, the Intamin mega coaster over there in the Netherlands. Andy, we've got a first-time appearance out of Hyperion from Energylandia in Poland. Hyperion, finally, lots of voters went and rode this ride and voted this year. So Hyperion making its first appearance.
Now, Danny, I did not see you begging for voters either on Instagram or Twitter, like begging, we need to get this right in.
We did not have a problem getting voters, and we did not have
another record-breaking year, actually.
Another record-breaking year, and another record-breaking year in least amount of Facebook posts that I made in Facebook groups.
Interesting. Yeah.
So there we go. Next up, we've got Leviathan, the Giga Coaster from Canada's Wonderland in Vaughan, Ontario, Canada. We've got Millennium Force from Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio. We've got the Smiler from Alton Towers in England. We've got Steel Vengeance, the three-time defending champion from Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio. We've got Superman, the ride from Six Flags New England in Agawam, Massachusetts. And we've got Wicked Cyclone from Six Flags New England in Agawam, Massachusetts. So we got both Six Flags New England's big boys here in the Kernax group. So Andy, let's real talk for a second. Undefeated, three-time defending champion, Steel Vengeance is your final four ride here, right? I mean,
well, unless you're really putting money on Hyperion, some people really like that ride. I just don't see how it's better than Steel Vengeance.
So Steel Vengeance, I mean, Superman's a former champion, but it's been dropping the last several years. Yeah, Leviathan's a former champion. It's you don't really think about it when you first look at this group, but there's three former champions, in here, which is kind of interesting. Superman won in 2014 as Bizarro. Leviathan won in 2013. So they're older champions, but champions nonetheless. But, Steel Vengeance, okay, pencil that in all the way, right? Where do you go after that? Because these are rides that have not historically been top 10 rides the last several years. Leviathan, Millennium Force, Wicked Cyclone, Goliath, Superman, Smiler, all kind of in the teens. And then no idea where to go with Hyperion, never been validly ranked before, no idea where that ride is going to end up. So after Steel Vengeance, this group, in my opinion, is pretty much a blank slate.
Yeah, because you got Steel Vengeance, you've got Goliath, which was it even in it last year? Was it?
Which one?
Goliath.
Goliath was in last year.
Okay. So you can get a little bit off of that, but then you have a lot of you can get the bottom, obviously. The bottom's pretty clear in this, what number 8 is. But you don't have to rank 8. You just gotta pick the top 4 and then rank.
Right. Picking 8 doesn't really do you much here.
No. That just you just eliminate 1 out of the 7. But once you get to the rest of those 7,
So fun fact here, fun fact for you. Wicked Cyclone opened in 2015. It is the ride on the steel brackets with the most number of losses without ever advancing past the first round. It is 0-5 all time in the head-to-head format. And it was 0-1 last year. It was knocked out in the first round. So Wicked Cyclone has never.
Who is this? I don't even understand how the hell this ride is still in the top 32. That's mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, Wicked Cyclone has never advanced beyond the first round of the Thrilling 32, despite being in the Thrilling 32 every year since it opened. So that's a little bit of.
I just don't understand it because, even if you've been on other RMCs and you really love RMC, this is Wicked Cyclone. It must be. I don't know what it is. It's why are people still ranking it so highly? But whatever.
Yeah,
it's still better than Storm Chaser though. So
well, I agree with you there. I mean, I really like Wicked Cyclone. It's it's lower than it was obviously when it first opened. There's been a lot of better rides that have opened since then, in my opinion. But I think there's one thing that's obvious in this group, and everything else is really up for debate and up for discussion. Because after Steel Vengeance, there is no guaranteed points here at all.
No, not. I think you're absolutely right on that. So
all right,
it's giving me a headache just looking at it.
Yeah. So Andy, fun fact about Millennium Force here. The last time Millennium Force was the highest ranked ride at Cedar Point was 2014. So even Maverick was higher than Millennium Force for the years leading up to Steel Vengeance here. Millennium Force, to me, Millennium Force has always been a little bit of an enigma here because it's been number 5 multiple times. It's been a top 5 ride multiple times. And then it's been in the teens, and there's like really no in between. It's never been like 8 or,
Yeah,
9.
it kind of like popcorns back and forth. But I just don't see Millennium Force jumping. It could be the top 4 in this group, but I just don't see it jumping up into a high position into the top 10 anymore. Like I just don't. Not in this poll. In other polls maybe, but not in this poll. This poll's real.
All right, so I'll pose this question, and then we'll move on. So Steel Vengeance, undefeated, 3-time defending champion. I ask you this every single year. You've got rides like Untamed. You've got rides like Fury 325. Expedition G-Force was, I think Expedition G-Force was number 2 last year. A surprise number 2 Expedition G-Force was last year. Any chance that anyone knocks off Steel Vengeance again this year? Oh, well, for the first, I say again, I'm asking you again, any chance anyone knocks off Steel Vengeance?
I would hope not, because I just haven't seen anything in anywhere that would suggest to me.
I mean, Untamed to me, Untamed is the only one that you could think about because of it took a damn good crack at it 2 years ago in Untamed's debut year, and it came up just short, and then Untamed slipped down the rankings last year. So
yeah, I don't see. I think the people who've ridden Untamed have ridden it. So I don't see it jumping back up. Hyperion is a question mark because that has not been in the poll. So Hyperion is a question mark depending on how many people wrote it and how highly they ranked it. Right. But from a purely, because I'm a critical thinker, Danny Miller. So I have watched.
Here we go, guys. Here we go. Here we go.
I am a critical thinker. I have watched point of view videos of many of the rides, and I can tell you none of them are better than Steel Vengeance, purely based on the videos. So we can postulate all we want here, but realistically, nothing should beat, so far as what I've seen, nothing should come close to like Hyperion. I don't think is much of a challenge unless there's some trick of the numbers that you use. I don't know.
No, I mean Steel Vengeance, at least to me personally, far away far and away best steel coaster. There's some of those other rides that I mentioned are close, but Steel Vengeance.
Yeah.
I don't see any of those rides knocking it off. So shall we move on finally to our second steel group here?
Okay.
All right, so we're going to the Walter Bollinger group, and Andy,
I know that guy.
Yeah, you know that guy. I've met that guy. Lovely gentleman. So Andy, we've got.
Hold on, what the hell are these?
We've got some stuff to talk about here, Andy. We've got a lot of rides that we've never seen before, and rides that we've seen seldomly, and then we've seen some perennial favorites. So we've got Fly from Phantasialand in Germany, the launched flying coaster that opened this year, and as you can see on the other side, not the only ride that opened in 2021 that's in this group here. So after Fly, we've got Fury 325, a 2-time champion in the history of the Thrilling 32, Fury 325 from Carowinds in Charlotte, North Carolina, South Carolina border area. We've got Iron Rattler from Six Flags Fiesta, Texas in San Antonio, Texas. We've got Mako from SeaWorld Orlando in Orlando, Florida. So Mako staying in the Thrilling 32. And Andy, I'll say this too. We're seeing some of these new rides here. There seemed to be a bit of a mass exodus of B&M hypercoasters this year. Last year, we had an entire group that was 7 B&M hyper/giga coasters, and then Phantom's Revenge was in there. There's a number of those rides that we will not be seeing this year, but Mako has survived the B&M hypercoaster exodus this year, as has Fury 325. Andy, the ride to happiness is in the Thrilling 32.
Oh, yeah, that ride, yeah.
Yeah. So for the folks who don't know Ride to Happiness, it's over in Belgium, I believe, and it's very similar to Time Traveler. It's a launch spinning mock coaster. Instead of the vertical drop out of the station, it does a little bit of a JoJo roll, but it's got some very, very unique inversions, a number of people who vote in our poll, and a number of very close friends did ride this ride last year and had rave reviews about the ride to happiness, and it's enough to put it in the Thrilling 32 in its debut year. Next up, we've got Shambhala, the big B&M hypercoaster. Speaking of B&M hypercoasters, from Port Aventura Park in Salau, Spain. Now, this is a ride that has sort of gone in and out because of how many riders and voters it's had, but it actually, this ride has been a top 10 ride in the past when it has qualified and had a valid ranking. So Shambhala from Spain, back in the Thrilling 32 this year. We got Sky Rush from Hershey Park in Hershey, Pennsylvania. Now, Andy, last year Candemonium didn't make it in. We speculated whether or not that would be because of just little ridership. But Sky Rush did very, very well last year, and it's back in the Thrilling 32 again this year. So we'll see how Sky Rush does here. And finishing off the Bollinger group, we've got Zadra, the big B&M hybrid, or not B&M, the RMC hybrid coaster from Energylandia. So, Andy, we've got two rides in the Thrilling 32 this year, at least, from Energylandia over there in Poland. Again, we had a lot of voters. This is not, one or two or three voters who just made a trip over there and are pushing these rides in. We had many people who went over into Europe and rode these new rides here this year. So we've got Fly, Ride to Happiness, and Zadra, these fairly new rides, kind of in far reaches of Europe a little bit there. Not a lot of time to go ride these rides. Two of them new this year. Zadra new just a couple of years ago, and then we had COVID. So what are your thoughts here? Because this is a little bit of a mixed bag of rides we've seen over and over and over again, and we feel good about where they are, mixed with, maybe 3 or 4 rides that you really have no idea what to expect.
Holy shit. Seriously, this one is so confusing because you got rides like Fury and Sky Rush that you feel should do well, and then you got things like Fly and Zadra that you feel like you've heard really good things about, and now you've got things you've never heard of before, like Ride to Happiness. And then you have like old favorites of Iron Rattler and Mako. Like,
yeah. Now you're an Iron Rattler fan. You are not a Mako fan.
No, Mako's just running them. Like, Mako's a fine ride, but it's not like, top 20 or whatever for me. Iron Rattler is. I did move Iron Rattler down on my rankings ever so slightly. I think I moved it out of my top 10. So I think it's like in my top 15 now. Yeah. But Fury is like a top 5 ride. Sky Rush is a top 5 ride for me. So like I can't base this off of my personal rankings just because I know, but I know a lot of people. We saw Sky Rush last year move up because of the Candemonium effect, that people went to go ride Candemonium and rode Sky Rush and rediscovered how great of a ride Sky Rush is. I was kind of pissed because we went out to Hershey Park this past summer with the
it was still down.
It was still down. So so like we went out with the patrons and stuff and did our big meetup at Hershey Park, had a blast for a few days. Also discovered that the vaccine does in fact work because there were so many people there on Saturday.
You guys were kicking ass at Hershey Park.
Like, seriously, you could not see the pavement. There were so many people. And I looked at the group and I said, well, if I don't get COVID this weekend, I don't think I'll ever get COVID because this vaccine has to be doing something.
I know that it works if I can go to Hershey Park on a Saturday in July and I come back and I'm fine.
and trust me, it seemed to work. So anyway, so I did not. So long story short, I didn't get to ride Sky Rush again. So I was a little pissed about that. But a lot of people who have gone to ride Candemonium have rediscovered this love of Sky Rush. And didn't we see it move up a little bit last year or a lot last year?
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to talk about here. So here's the last 5 years, starting with last year and then going back to 2016. Here's the last 5 years for Sky Rush. And you're going to notice a pattern because there isn't one. So last year, number 5. Before that, 16. Before that, 14. Before that, 8. Before that, 16. So Skyrush has quite literally been a roller coaster in these rankings. In fact, Skyrush, not long before that, was number 35 and not in the bracket at all. And so Skyrush is one of those, and we talked about this last year, and Skyrush really did people in last year because, you know, they were like, oh, 14, 16 Skyrush, you know, let's write it out. And then it ended up, I think, being second in its group, wreaked havoc on people in that Intamin group.
So the problem now is you got to figure out, because Skyrush has been low the majority of times. So was last year just an anomaly at number 5, or is that a legit ranking moving forward? That's tough. I don't know. You have nothing to go on there, and that's a crapshoot. It could be 20 this year. It could be number 5 again. Who the hell knows?
Well, yeah, and that's the tough part, right? Because if you remember last year, Skyrush was in that Intamin group. It wasn't in a crappy group to come in at number 2. It was in a group with rides like, Expedition G-Force, and I think Terran, Superman, Millennium Force, you know, all the big Intamins were in that group. Intimidator 305. Skyrush outranked all of those except Expedition G-Force last year. So the history, if you look at, like you said, the majority of the times, Skyrush has been, you know, in the teens or the 20s. It's been in the middle of the pack of the Thrilling 32. It's been number 5 last year. So was last year sort of an outlier because it was the Candemonium effect maybe? Or was that a sign of things to come and maybe it's going to stay there? It's gone up into the top 10 before and then promptly dropped out the following couple of years. So, you know, when you talk about trends and we say, look at some of the trends, because sometimes the trends can point you in the right direction. There's 2 trends on collision courses when it comes to Skyrush.
Yeah.
You know, one tells you it's moving up. One tells you that it's going to drop back down.
And what you have here is you have the irresistible force meeting the immovable object. So what the hell is going to happen? I don't know.
Well, and what complicates the matter is the fact that you've got 3 essentially brand new rides that have no history to go off of, and Shambhala with next to no history. Again, Shambhala has been a top 10 ride once before. So
theoretically, Skyrush might not even make it out of the pack here.
Yeah, because I mean, and a lot of people are looking at Fury and probably penciling that in to the final 4. So, you know, if you've really got 3 slots underneath Fury to fill, you've got 3 rides that you have no history on. You've got a ride that's been very, very bipolar in Skyrush, and you've got Shambhala, which when it's had enough riders has done very, very well. And
then you got Iron Rattler.
Well, I was going to say Iron Rattler, it last 5 years, Iron Rattler, 10, 10, 11, 9, 9.
Yeah.
I mean, Iron Rattler is basically a penciled in top 10 ride. And in a group of 8 rides, when there's 32, being in the top 10 should get you into the next round with Iron Rattler, right? But maybe it doesn't with the other rides that are here.
No. Okay.
So, and the only other thing that I want to say here, if you look at the comparison of the 2 rides, Iron Gwazi, we just found out today will be opening in a couple of months, less than 2 months actually. Media day and previews will actually be in less than a month from now. I think Zadra, because of the similarities of the layouts and the lengths and the stats and the inversions and the maneuvers, I think Zadra and where that ride comes in this year is going to be a very good indication of where we might expect to see Iron Gwazi next year. So if you're looking forward to Iron Gwazi and thinking Iron Gwazi looks like it might be a Steel Vengeance killer, because we've had people say that. I don't know. I don't believe that myself, at least not at this point. I haven't ridden it yet, obviously. I don't believe that myself. But if you believe that Iron Gwazi could be a ride that competes with Steel Vengeance, you got to look at Zadra and you got to look at how similar Iron Gwazi and Zadra are. And I think you got to be taking a serious look at Zadra to maybe be a top 10, maybe even top 5 ride here this year.
Yeah, it's a complete question mark. I don't disagree with anything you've said there. Especially since you said a number of people have ridden it. So,
well, yeah, lots of people went and rode it. So, this is another one here where you've got a lot of unknowns. We had that in one of the wood coaster groups where there's some conflicting history. There's a little bit of that here, and then there's no history. So, good luck with this one. So, all right, Andy. We've got group number 3 waiting in the wings here, and it is the Dana Morgan group. So
I know that guy.
Group, yep, there we go. So we've got Expedition G-Force from Holiday Park in Haslach, Germany. We've got Helix from Liseberg in Sweden, and I'm going to come back to Helix once we talk about when we mention the rest of the coasters here. Andy, we've got Medusa Steel Coaster from Six Flags Mexico in Mexico City. Joining the fray here. Has been in the Thrilling 32 once before. It's struggled to have enough voters and enough riders, but again, another record year, highest average number of coasters ridden. Medusa Steel Coaster back in the Thrilling 32 this year. And in its only previous Thrilling 32 appearance, it did win a matchup and advance the second round. So Medusa Steel Coaster has a favorable history in the Thrilling 32 when it's qualified. We've got Nemesis from Alton Towers in England. We've got Phantom's Revenge from Kennywood in West Mifflin, Pennsylvania. Andy, not the only Six Flags Mexico ride in this group is Medusa Steel Coaster. We've got Superman El Ultimo Escape, as they would say down there south of the border. Superman The Ultimate Escape, the Morgan Hypercoaster from Six Flags Mexico. Its first ever appearance in the Thrilling 32. And actually, Andy, it's first ever time that this has had enough voters and riders to be ranked validly in the list. So perhaps it's another ride that we'll see year after year now that it's had enough voters. Last 2 rides here in the Morgan group, we've got Terran, a perennial favorite here from Phantasialand in Germany. And Andy, the Morgan group is where we find Velocicoaster from Universal's Islands of Adventure. So lots of hype surrounding Velocicoaster, ride that's gotten very favorable reviews thus far in its history, which has only been about 6 or 7 months. But Jurassic World Velocicoaster is indeed in the Thrilling 32, and it's in the Dana Morgan group here. But boy, a tough draw for Velocicoaster, don't you think? I mean,
well, so colored me ashamed here, Danny Miller, because I had forgotten completely about Velocicoaster, mainly because I didn't write it. Because
okay, that's fair. That's
I'm
fair.
not one of the crazies
I enjoyed it very much, and I know there's many folks on Facebook and Instagram and on YouTube that are still awaiting my Velocicoaster review. I promise you, it's coming.
Yeah, I wrote it. I'm not one of the
September. We're 5 months beyond it. I promise you, it's coming.
I'm not one of the lunatics who traveled down and took my life into my own hands by going down to the state of Florida. But anyway, so I had forgotten completely.
I waited until Delta was at least at its peak to go down. Come on. I went to HHN for the first time. Give me some credit. I went to HHN.
Oh, God, I will not. So I completely forgot about Velocicoaster. And we know a person that has changed his allegiance. Now, you may know a person named Maverick Rob Dole. And we've talked about him quite a bit. The man
he's not Maverick Rob anymore.
I was getting to that point there. The man who did not select Maverick to win, that would have given him the Thrilling 32 championship title, did not select the ride that he loves to win in that matchup. Has changed his name to Velocicoaster.
He's been punished.
Yeah, to what was it? Velocicoaster Rob or
Velocirob?
Velocirob. There you go. Jesus Christ. What the hell's the world coming to, right? So I completely forgot about this. Now, here's the thing. Okay. I'm going to talk about it, Danny. Why not? Let's talk about the elephant in the room here.
Okay.
A lot of people don't like Steel Vengeance because it's too aggressive. I call these people names.
I don't know if I'd say a lot of people. I mean, it's got 99.5% of its possible points here.
Well, okay. There's a handful of people that don't like Steel Vengeance because it's too aggressive. And I have a name for these type of people, but I'm not going to say it here. Not going to say it here because I don't want to be thrown off of YouTube.
No, we'll save that. We'll save that for the patron videos.
Yeah, exactly. So but here's the thing. I said to you, and I said to the man who shall not be named, and I said to Velocicoaster Rob, or whatever the hell he's calling himself. Velocirob. I said to you three people, I said, this ride, Velocicoaster, might be the real deal. Now, when the first POVs came out, when the
off rides came out, we were very.
You guys were all shitting on this ride, completely shitting on this ride, and I was one of them.
I admit it. I was one of them.
One by one, you fools. See, because you don't have critical thinking like I do. Like I have critical thinking, so I can watch an off-ride point of view and determine that a ride's going to be really good, and I can then continue to watch a point of view and determine, yes, this ride's going to be really good. So I said to you guys, I said this ride's something special, and every single person, one by one, you fools went down there, one by one. The man who shall not be named, Danny Miller, Velocirob, one by one, you fools went down there and confirmed what the man who did not even step into the state of Florida already knew. So I said this ride's going to be special. I did not say
damn good ride. It's a damn
I did not say that this ride was going to be a new number one. So I said it could be. I said there is the definite possibility because
Andy, that's every ride that opens these days is a new number one.
So okay, but I'm talking about people that have critical thinking here. I'm not talking about enthusiasts. Okay?
Okay, all right.
Okay, so there's a difference there. I'm not talking about the enthusiasts. I'm talking about critical thinkers. Okay, so I said there's a possibility that this ride, if it has the right intensity, if it holds its speed, because there is a time where you actually need to go on the ride. I'm not going to say that you can determine everything from the point of view. You can critically think, and you can look at the videos and say, okay, it's going to be in this range. And I said it's probably going to be in the top 5 range. So is it going to be a new number one? It could be. Now, that being said, I also think that this ride has 2 other advantages. One, I don't believe it is as intense. And when I say that, we all know the RMC restraints cut a little bit into the thighs. You know, they cut a little bit in, especially on the bunny hills, especially on the intense inversions, that a lot of people walk off of that ride and be like, wow, that, like, we did 14 laps on media day. Well, probably the greatest day in the history of days.
I was walking sideways for a week.
Yeah, I had bruises all over my mid torso section. So it cuts in. I know that. And some people don't like that. Now, Intamin has kind of fixed their restraint system. That people said the same thing about Skyrush. Now we have this new restraint system that seems to be universally liked for the most part on this, because Terran has it, right?
Terran's got them too. Yeah.
So universally kind of liked. So that's going to give another advantage. Then you have the caveat here. You have the double whammy, and the double whammy with Velocicoaster is this: it's got raptors on it. It's got raptors on it. Come on, Danny Miller. It's got raptors.
Shame on me. I thought you were going to be serious. you brought it back to raptor.
Shame on you, because I said at the top of this show that raptor was going to make it into this thrilling 32. And
well, categorically, I guess you are correct.
Categorically, I got 4 raptors that have made it into this thrilling 32.
Yeah, you're making up for lost time, are you?
So I got 4 of them. Delta, Charlie, Echo, and Blue are all in this damn ride. So,
well, if Velocicoaster makes the thrilling 32 for the next 4 years, you've made up for the last decade of thrilling 32.
So, and we know new rides do tend to do better in this poll. Okay, so we know all this. Here's the question mark. The question mark is this, and you probably know this answer, but I don't think you should say it to anybody. The question mark is how many people actually went down to Florida and rode Velocicoaster, and because at some level you also have to have this and thought it was better than Steel Vengeance.
And that's the question, right? And I think, in the context of this group, Terran is probably a pretty good comparison point, because before Velocicoaster opened, that's what a lot of people were talking about, at least the folks who had been over to Terran, because, obviously they're both Intamin. At least the first half of Velocicoaster is very compact, much like all of Terran is, but Velocicoaster is the second half that's a little bit more speed oriented, and the elements are much bigger and more spread out. Velocicoaster's second half is almost a little bit more like Helix in that regard. And I said that I wanted to mention Helix. Helix was really odd because it had been a top 10 ride every year it qualified. And then last year it wasn't in the Thrilling 32. And this year it's back in. So perhaps last year was a little bit of an outlier, and maybe Helix is a potential top 10 ride in here. So I think it's interesting that we've got Velocicoaster, Terran, and Helix all in this same group here because they are very, very similar rides. And then we haven't even really mentioned Expedition G-Force, which was number 2 last year. So, you've got a lot of things to consider here in this group.
I didn't hear a word you just said, because I was thinking of 2 things. The first thing is I was still thinking about Velocicoaster and what that would mean to this poll and how that shakes things up. And the second thing I was thinking about is, has Steel Vengeance has been swatting down competitors because it has faced different competition every year. That when you look at the Woodside, it's always like Voyage and Lightning Rod. It's like the same 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Voyage and Lightning Rod have been going back and forth, and Voyage.
Fury took a shot at Steel Vengeance, couldn't beat it, and as the defending champion, Fury took a shot and couldn't beat it. Untamed came in with a vengeance, came in its opening year when Untamed was perhaps best equipped to take down Steel Vengeance. We talk about how new rides are tending to, in the history of this poll, the 10-year history of this poll, new rides tend to do very well, and then you see them start to fall back a little bit, and how new rides have a tendency to win in their first year. Outlaw Run won in 2013. Fury won in 2015. Lightning Rod won in 2016. Steel Vengeance won in 2018. Untamed in 2019 was new, had everything for it, came up with 99.6% of the points, and still couldn't beat Steel Vengeance. And Steel Vengeance outdid Untamed when Untamed had everything in its favor. And we talked about it on that championship show. And it was at that point where we said Steel Vengeance may never be topped because Untamed would have been the ride to do it. And then,
here we are talking about it again.
And here we are 3 years later talking about that prospect again. So when you think about it, Untamed being one of 2 rides in the Thrilling 32's history to come in at number 2 in its debut year, the other being Leviathan in 2012 when it was runner-up to Intimidator 305. Those are the only 2 rides that were number 2 in their opening years. Every other ride where we've had that scenario ended up winning in its opening year. So we've got twice as many examples of debut rides winning than we do have them coming in at number 2. So, and
then wait, hold on. Where did you say G-Force ended up last year?
G-Force was number 2 last year.
So once again, Vengeance swatting down a different competitor.
First it was Fury, then it was Untamed. Now G-Force, the rides that have been in the top 4 this year, all 3 of them have had a crack at Vengeance the last 3 years, and none of them have succeeded.
And
it's been pretty convincing the last 2 of those 3 years.
Because up to this point, Danny, I haven't even thought about this group. I've only been thinking about Velocicoaster.
Right. So right. And it's an incredible discussion because the reviews for Velocicoaster are extremely positive. They are some of the most positive for a new ride that I've seen probably since Steel Vengeance. So now let's talk about it in the context of the group. Expedition G-Force, 5 times Expedition G-Force has been to the final 4. Helix has been in the top 10 every year with the exception of last year, which I think is a pretty reasonable to say that that's an outlier. Nemesis has been to the final 4 once before, has been in the top 10 4 different times in the history of this poll. Terran twice has been to the final 4 and has been as high as number 3, and it's been in the top 10 each of the last 4 years. Terran has been. So all of a sudden, we said all these nice things about Velocicoaster. All of a sudden, I think it's just as reasonable a discussion to ask if it's even in the top 4 in this group.
I think it is. Like, I think it is.
Terran, Nemesis, and G-Force were all top 10 last year, and you've got Fury, you've got Steel Vengeance. We're going to see Untamed in the last group here. All of a sudden, that top 10's getting very, very crowded. This isn't
It's almost like your top 10 where you got 25 coasters in your top 10.
We were about to make the same joke. It's not a Danny Miller top 10 where there's 25 rides in the top 10. We can't have it. Yeah. So what's going to give here? Are we going to see rides drop out, or is Velocicoaster going to be on the outside looking in? I mean, I don't know. I
can't think anymore. You've blown my head already.
and maybe people. So we talked at the beginning of the show about we're trying to make people quit. This might be the group where people just crumple up the piece of paper and they just become observers and bystanders.
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna let Velocirob do this year. He might be the one to crumple up and quit. I don't know.
Well, yeah. The only thing that could have been more diabolical would have been putting Maverick in the group with Velocicoaster. No. That would have been the only thing that would have made this more difficult for him.
Would have been funny.
So, Andy, any final thoughts on this? No, boy, we didn't even talk about the 2 Mexico rides, but who knows where those are going to be?
Who the hell knows? I don't. Who knows?
You guys got a lot to think about in this group. That is for damn sure. All right, Andy, we've got one group left, and we've got a number of rides that we have not even sniffed yet.
Hey, I know this guy, unfortunately.
You do. It's the Alan Schilke group. And Andy, like we said, there are a number of big rides that we had not talked about yet, and a number of them appearing here. This is one hell of a group as far as contenders go. We've got Behemoth from Canada's Wonderland in Vaughan, Ontario, Canada. We've got Intimidator 305 from King's Dominion in Doswell, Virginia. We've got Maverick from Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio. We've got Silver Star from Europa Park and Rooster. Andy, so no Apollo's Chariot, no Nitro, no Diamondback. Andy, no Goliath from Six Flags Over Georgia, but Mako and Silver Star. No Candemonium, no Orion. Orion is gone. Orion is out. Diamondback is out. Silver Star survives the B&M Hypercoaster Exodus.
I got no.
Okay, there we go. And then we've got a bunch of Schilke rides on the other side here. We've got Twisted Colossus from Six Flags Magic Mountain in Valencia, California. We've got Twisted Timbers from King's Dominion in Doswell, Virginia. We've got Untamed from Walibi Holland in the Netherlands. And we've got X2 from Six Flags Magic Mountain in Valencia, California. So, Andy, we've got 2 King's Dominion rides in here. We've got 2 Magic Mountain rides here. We've got Untamed, who was again in Final Four and championship appearance 2 years ago in 2019. Been in the top 4 both years that it's been in here. And Andy, X2 finally had a good run last year and made its first ever Final Four appearance last year, did X2. So X2's been to the Final Four, Untamed's been to the Final Four, Maverick has been to the Final Four. Maverick was in the Final Four in 2016, and Andy, something that'll make both of us very, very happy. Maverick has been in the top 10 of the Thrilling 32 5 consecutive years now. And you know what that aligns with? It aligns with that restraint change.
Yeah, which I find funny because honestly, the restraint change on Maverick had a nominal effect on me at best. I might even take the old restraints. I like those a little bit better, I think. Now, however, you look at when we did the big meetup at Hershey Park this year and I rode Storm Runner, that ride I thought was vastly improved with the restraint.
Might I say that Fahrenheit is vastly improved with them as well?
I didn't get on Fahrenheit because the line was too long. I didn't feel like it. So
that line's always long.
I know. I don't understand it. I just said, screw it. I don't need to write this. But Storm Runner was vastly improved, like to the point where I remember writing Storm Runner a few years ago That was a number of years ago now. And I was like, oh man, that was like the maneuvers it does with the turns and the inversions. Like it didn't work well with the hard restraints. It was very rough on your whole body. Maverick, I feel, is much more smooth in how it does those things. Like it's still aggressive, but I feel like you can ride it better.
Right.
But Storm Runner, I thought, was much improved throughout the whole ride, and I really enjoyed riding it multiple times. So I thought that helped. Now Maverick, so people say the soft restraints are better. Okay, whatever. I'm having a hard time getting my thinking back after that last group.
Well, so while you're trying to do that, let me throw this at you, because this will scramble everyone's minds even more. 7 of the 8 coasters in this group have ranked 6th or higher at some point in the history of this poll. The only ride to not be 6th or higher at some point in the history of this poll is Silver Star. Behemoth, I-305, Maverick, Colossus, Timbers, Untamed, the next 2 all have been 6th or better at some point in the history of this poll. So, we've said multiple times tonight, this might be the toughest group yet. And I feel like you might be able to say that after this one too, because
your top Untamed 4 is very difficult. I can narrow it down to 5, but I'm having a hell of a time narrowing it down to 4.
Yeah.
Because there's gonna be one ride that is not moving on to the next section, to the next phase.
I think Silver Star is probably the only one you can really rule out.
Yeah.
You're not a Behemoth fan. I'm a big Behemoth fan.
I like Behemoth. I can get it down to 5. And after looking at those 5, I'm just like, what the hell's going on here?
So I'm going to ask you, because I don't know what your 5 are.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. So what 3 are you rolling? I'm assuming you're rolling out Silver Star and Behemoth, but what's your 3rd one?
And then I'm tossing Twisted Colossus too.
Are you?
I know the California idiots really love that ride. So that's the problem.
Twisted Colossus is one that we talked about how Twister and Prowler and Shivering Timbers don't get the love they deserve. To me, Colossus is one of the rides that I always felt got too much love in our poll. Because for me, it's excited.
Danny, I'm just really excited that that Knott's Berry Farm could be getting a Giga Coaster that looks legit, and maybe.
Oh my God, could that ever be a game changer?
Like maybe California will finally understand what a real roller coaster is. And I love X2 and everything, but it's a gimmick. It's a gimmick at the end of the day. But you get a real Giga out there at Knott's, and maybe the California people will finally bison up a little bit.
Yeah,
who am I not pissed off today? California, Florida. I haven't taken any shots at Ohio yet, so maybe that'll come up later. Or Pennsylvania. I've been very complimentary towards Pennsylvania so far.
Yeah. Well, for the most part,
except for Knoebels,
Well, but you've insulted me a number of times, so I think that's got to come from something. But and people, I know that it's.
And I did insult the Beast, so I guess Pennsylvania and Ohio are off the list too.
Well, yeah, you definitely stirred some shit.
Yeah.
I know this is a little bit of dated history, but and especially for the newer folks who have only been with us maybe a couple of years, but a lot of people don't realize that Behemoth has actually been to the Final Four twice in the history of this poll in the earlier days. So Behemoth, much like Silver Star and Mako, surviving the B&M Hypercoaster exodus. So, in the last 2 or 3 years, we've seen Goliath from Laron, Apollo's Chariot, Nitro, Diamondback all fall out. Now we see Goliath from Six Flags Over Georgia, which in my opinion is the biggest glaring omission from this group. I mean, Goliath at Six Flags Over Georgia for me is a top 10 ride. So why that is not here, I have no idea.
It's mind-boggling that Goliath is not in this. I also have it as a top 10 ride. I don't understand how anyone would not rank it in their top 20. If you've been on any roller coaster anywhere, I don't understand how you don't like Goliath at Six Flags Over Georgia.
Right.
I don't understand that at all. It may be one of the biggest offensive things I've ever seen in this poll, to be honest with you. I'm trying to think of a bigger offense. Like Kumba's not here. Some people don't like Kumba, whatever. I thought Kumba was going to move up this year. But for Goliath at Over Georgia to not even make the top 32, I've said this before.
That's a travesty of justice.
It is a travesty of justice here today. And I can't even process it at this point. I don't think my mind has actually processed this information, because what the hell are you ranking that you don't like Goliath?
And I'll throw this out there, because Aunt Sue and I went to Six Flags Over Georgia this year. We both rode Goliath this year, and we both moved it up our rankings a significant amount. Like I said, I moved it back up into my top 10. Frankly, it probably should have been there for, the entire time. But that makes it, that makes it even more puzzling that we know a lot, that, we went down there and we moved it up and it still dropped out. So
it's weird, because I too made major shifts in my rankings this year. I already talked about moving Iron Rattler a little bit down. I've talked about I moved Storm Runner up significantly.
I thought you only needed one ride on a coaster to rank it.
I do, but here's the problem. So the problem is, as I ride more, I forget. And also Storm Runner got soft restraint, so it greatly improved. So
okay, all right. I'll give you that.
Other rides I moved up over Iron Rattler, and I moved Storm Runner up because of the changing scenario. So yeah, I only need one ride normally, but okay. Goliath did not change for me, and I don't understand where people are ranking Goliath why it's not in the top 32 of any coaster poll. Like, it's by far the best B&M hyper. It's probably the second best hyper anywhere behind Magnum, which also is not in this poll. So
and Magnum has never been in the Thrilling 32,
which is also a travesty of justice.
Especially in the early years, it ought to have been.
I don't understand why people don't like Magnum. Well, and maybe that's the issue, because I've always said Goliath is the B&M version of Magnum. So if you don't like Magnum, you probably don't like Goliath either.
Well, you might be onto something there. So this steel bracket as a whole,
I can't even think about that. I can't.
The steel bracket so if you can't think about it, I'm just going to make a couple of points here before we wrap up. So I'm just going to go through the groups. And again, we mentioned this last year, and we'll say it again here at the end. These rides were all shown in the slide in alphabetical order, not including the word "the" from the top left to the bottom right. So they're not in any particular order when they're appearing on your slides. So don't think that has anything to do with it. So Hyperion, Fly, Ride to Happiness, Shambhala, Zadra, Medusa Steel Coaster, Superman, Velocicoaster. Is that 8? Am I missing one? Am I missing a ride that wasn't in last year?
I think that's it.
Is that 8?
Superman. Oh, you said Superman.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's all of them.
Okay. So, that's a lot of rides that were not. That's a lot
of shifting. And we said that was going to happen. I called that at the beginning of the show. I said, we're going to see some shift this year because of people getting out more. And that's exactly what we've seen, especially in the steel side.
Yeah. No, definitely. So here are a list of rides that dropped out that were in last year. Goliath and Twisted Cyclone, both from Six Flags Over Georgia, both out. Montu dropped out. Black Mamba dropped out. Time Traveler dropped out. Orion dropped out. Wonder Woman dropped out from Six Flags Fiesta, Texas. The Ultimate and Cannibal both dropped out. So a lot of shifting here.
Orion might be the biggest surprise. Although, I don't know, because I didn't rank it very highly myself. And I got on that this year. I felt Orion, and also Candemonium wasn't in it last year. Also nowhere to be seen.
We thought it might appear this year because we thought it might be a ridership issue, and that appears to not be the case.
So a lot of rides that I would say that those 2020 rides that were supposed to open or did open, maybe a disappointing group overall. I think Texas Stingray, the best out of that group. Still showing, but Orion and Candemonium maybe a bit of I know you're a big Candemonium fan. I was kind of nonplussed about it. Yeah. Orion, I kind of felt the same way. I'm like, I actually did move Leviathan down in my rankings a little bit. because I kind of thought, like, I really liked that speed hill on Leviathan, but I kind of felt like I was over ranking Leviathan, and I compared it a lot to Orion. So now I got Leviathan slightly above Orion, and I'm like, I can't have both of them in my top 15 because they're not. Orion's not a top 15 ride. So I moved Leviathan down. So you got me there. I needed, another. I had to think about it a little bit, but really, I didn't ride it again. So I still only needed one ride. I'm just rethinking about that.
Okay. All right. There you go.
Aha.
And I forgot, since Helix wasn't in last year, that was the 9th one because I counted 9 that dropped out. So in the steel bracket, we had 9 new coasters that, and not all new, but 9 coasters that were not in last year that are in this year. And then consequently 9 fell out. On the wood side of things, I believe, someone will probably fact check me if I'm wrong, but 31 out of the 32 are the same. The only difference is we have Texas Stingray and the Beast fell out. Other than that, we've got 31 of the same 32 wood coasters.
I think you're going to see a lot of that because the number of wood coasters going up, unless a lot of people start taking trips to like Asia, I just don't see a whole lot of new wood coasters popping up anywhere. Well, maybe. Because there are a lot of hints coming out of Cedar Point lately that something's happening. So,
yeah, and with the potential Scandinavia trip on the docket for us in 2023, rides like Balder and Wildfire, and then Helix and even Rutschebanen would be on the schedule there. So there could be a significant shift coming in a couple of years there, but some big differences between the wood and steel this year. The steel is a lot of uncharted territory, whereas the wood really doesn't seem to be a lot of uncharted territory this year. We really just got to kind of figure out where things move about in that wood coaster bracket, which is usually the case.
You may notice I put on another pin.
Which one did you put on there?
I put on the Danny Screw Raptor pin, which has been consistent throughout the 10 years. So
yes, it has.
Thanks again for screwing Raptor.
10 years of proudly screwing
You're
Raptor.
Obviously withholding the vote on it. It's obviously that you're not counting correctly. You've disqualified ballots for some reason, or it's just the Raptor. So I don't know what you're doing over there.
Arthur Porter's ballot was thrown in the garbage.
But I think we need to have. I'm going to call Rudy Giuliani and see if he can get on this. Because
oh boy, yep. Well, no lightning rod on the steel side of things. So interesting.
Oh well, that problem gets kicked down to the next group. Because I think eventually, though, I think the lightning rod issue. I for one did not think it was going to be an issue this year at all. Because the number of people that are going to get down to Tennessee and ride lightning rod, I think, was probably significant. I don't know how many.
They're not going to rank it in their steel rankings till they ride it as a steel coaster.
Exactly.
Right?
So, how many people actually ranked? Do you know offhand how many people actually ranked it in their steel rankings?
I did. I saw it. It wasn't. There were some people who had it pretty high. If I looked at the raw numbers, it was not a significant amount. Less people. So I can tell you this: less people rode lightning rod as a steel coaster this year and ranked it in the steel rankings than there was riders of rides like Fly and Ride to Happiness and Hyperion. So those rides over in Europe, and even those new ones like Fly and Ride to Happiness, had better ridership and representation in the boating pool than lightning rod as a steel coaster. So I think the door is still open in future years for sure. Lightning rod to appear here. It may apparate.
I don't think this was the year because of what happened and because of people traveling. But I do think within 2 to 3 years, I do think it is going to be something that we see happen. I would be surprised, honestly, if Wicked Cyclone can get into the top 32, Lightning Rod should be able to get into the top 32 steel. Come on.
No, I completely and 100% agree with you, because when I went through and ranked Lightning Rod on my steel list, I started by comparing it within the RMCs. And to me, Lightning Rod as a steel coaster feels very Iron Rattler to me. which is certainly in the top half. I mean, when you look at the length and the elements and the size and the speed, they do a lot of the same types of things. They got some overbanks, they got some off camber turns, got some airtime. Lightning Rod has the quad down. Iron Rattler's got the drop off of the cliff wall. They're not particularly long, and they maintain their speed all the way through. Very, very, very much so. So to me, and Iron Rattler's always done very, very well. Like we said, perennial top 10 ride. So to me, I think Lightning Rod has the potential to be that in a couple of years when we get more folks on the ride. And it still had its operational issues too. Those were not completely solved. So even folks who went down there, there's no guarantee that they rode it. That's
well, Danny, I'm gonna be honest with you. Our goal tonight was to hit under an hour, and we failed miserably at that.
We absolutely did fail miserably.
Like we're not even close to our goal.
No, we and I even took notes and I referenced them and kept us on track, and we still derailed the conversation. I don't know how many times, like we always do. So I have not created the Google form yet. As of this recording, I will be doing that this weekend. But when this show drops, and Andy, I think we might do the whole YouTube premiere thing with the live chat. We'll try and.
Well, they already know that at this point.
well, right, they already know that. So, but we don't know what the date's going to be at the time of recording here. But by when the recording drops. There will be a link in the description of this video down below for the Google form. It will not be live during the selection show because it's got all the brackets in there. We want you to watch it. If you're watching the YouTube premiere, we want you to watch it in real time and see the rides as they come up on the screen. So we will click the Google form and have it go live right now. So now if you go down into the description and you click on that Google form link, the Google form will now be live. You can go in and make your predictions.
You can also find it on thrilling32.com. So
yes, that's right. You can go to thrilling32.com. As of this recording, last year's rankings are not up there yet. They will be by the time this video goes live. So you can reference all of the past year's results and rankings as you see fit. You can use them. You can disregard them. You can do whatever you'd like. You can take our advice. You can disregard everything we've said and do your own damn thing. The challenge is now with you to try and predict this year's Thrilling 32 champions, the 10th edition of the Thrilling 32 and the second Thrilling 32 Coaster Rumble. Andy, this has been a lot of fun tonight. I'm so excited. This is our favorite time of year every year. I am so happy that it's this time of year again. And I'm very excited to see what the folks come up with and what their reactions are to what we've come up with this year.
Yeah, I'm moderately excited.
Yeah, pretty much any ride that's not Steel Vengeance or Voyage, you're moderately excited.
Yeah, moderately excited about it.
Any final thoughts?
Well, just thanks for coming out. Thanks for supporting us. Thanks for voting on #1 in the Ride Warrior Choice Awards.
Oh my God!
Without those votes, we don't have this. We don't have a ranking. We don't have a Coaster Rumble or a bracket or anything. So thank you for.
And thank you for spending your disposable income for going to all these new parks, your big road trip, going over to Europe, because lots of you did that this year as well. So, that just makes this more and more interesting every single year, despite what Andy thinks.
Well, so as always, thank you for joining us here on COASTER-net Uncut and the Thrilling 32. I am, of course, Andrew Barchak from Chicago, Illinois.
And thank you very much, guys. I'm Danny Miller from Binghamton, New York.
Right on, Ride Warriors.
Good luck, everyone.